Hey all, welcome back, Cult of Film. Today, I want to review a movie this movie was just pure fun. Those of you that follow the channel know that I'm a big fan of horror films, not splatter films, not necessarily gory films. I'm not really into that. I'm into well-crafted, mysterious, interesting films in general, and so much of the most creative films that have been coming out. Frankly, we've kind of been in a horror renaissance, maybe since Ringu came out in Japan in 1998, but we've really been humming along, certainly for the past 10 or 15 years. So much great independent stuff that's come out, whether it be through Bloomhouse, some great A24 stuff, IFC films, good stuff out there. It does seem to be the one genre in which small to mid-level budgets will still be approved and even produced by large studios or smaller productions. And this particular movie, just it happened to come up. If you're a fan of Asian horror, like I am, I loved Ringu, I loved Ju-on, or what is called The Grudge, and even the remakes of those films. I thought were really well done. I was kind of surprised. But if you like Asian horror, be it Korean, Japanese, I highly recommend you guys check out an Indonesian horror film that we're talking about today, and that is Satan's Slave. It's a 1980 Indonesian horror film directed by Siswaro Gautama Putra. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the plot follows a wealthy family who have stopped practicing their Muslim faith and are then tormented by the undead after the death of their mother. This movie has achieved cult status among fans of Asian horror. Obviously, that's why we're talking about it. It's been largely unavailable for years, except as an obscure Japanese VHS pressing with no English subtitles. In 2006, Brentwood Home Video, a specialist U.S. label, released an uncut print on DVD for retail release as part of its Eastern horror series. Among Western fans, it is notable for being one of the few classic horror films to substitute Christian or Buddhist themes for Muslim beliefs, which makes it gives it a different flavor, which was a lot of fun to watch. There is a remake of this film by Joko Anwar, and that was released in 2017, which was followed by and that was called Satan's Slaves, 2017, followed up by a sequel called Satan's Slaves Communion, which came out in 2021. Both of those remake films are streaming on Shudder.com, which, in addition to us pushing Criterion Channel memberships on this channel, you should really get if you're a horror fan, if you like obscure sort of culty films, just odd films. Shudder.com is a treasure trove. So yes, Satan's Slaves 1980. What's fun about this movie, it starts out sort of with a synthy early 80s sort of score that about a third of the way through the film sort of disappears, which is fine. I didn't even notice it because I was so drawn in by this film. But I love 80s horror. I certainly love synth scores. And basically, here's the plot of the film is Mawarti, who is a mother in this particular family, dies from a mysterious illness, leaves behind her workaholic husband Munarto, who is her quiet introverted son Tommy, and a party girl extroverted daughter Rita. And their sickly but religiously observant groundskeeper, Mr. Karto. On the first night after Mawarti's death, Tommy sees a vision of his late mother, but he does not talk to her. The next day, Tommy takes the advice of his friend and visits a fortune teller who warns him that his whole family is in great danger and that he may die. And this fortune teller advises him to protect himself with black magic. Tommy becomes kind of strange and withdrawn from his family. Rita, the party girl daughter, has a boyfriend named Herman, says that 40 days after a person dies, the person's spirit may linger around the house. Shortly after Herman's visit, a new housekeeper named Armina arrives, and it was allegedly sent by an acquaintance of their father to help them look after the house in the aftermath of the mother's passing. That night, after a party, Rita is scared when she sees a woman in white who claims to be the late mother. I won't continue to read you the plot out here, but it gets really, really fun. It's with the exception of it seems that most horror films could not get the color of blood right up until like maybe the mid 80s. It all kind of looks like red tempera paint to me. It's not dark enough. You have to mix a little black with your red to make convincing movie blood, and they still weren't doing it at this time. So, it's again, clearly a lower budget horror film for the time. I don't know that Indonesia has had as big a film industry as we have here in Hollywood at the time. But this is a fun movie where there's a mystery of, okay, where is the spirit of the mother coming from? Uh, will they heed the words of their groundskeeper, Mr. Carto, who's sort of a more observant Muslim, like, you've got to get back to God? Then you've got the boyfriend saying, oh, no, you should do this. And then the fortune teller saying you should protect yourself with black magic. So, they're trying all of these the different family members are trying different things, and all the while dealing with the loss and the now absence of their mother. The father is just sort of that sort of workaholic type. He's not really hearing any of this, so he's sort of blocked off. It does seem that Tommy, the son, does really get the brunt of this. He sees the mother most often. The sort of mysterious housekeeper, Darmina, is a really interesting character. You're kind of wondering what her angle is. Why did she show up all of a sudden? Is she there really to help? Is she, an ominous force? Mr. Carto, who is their groundskeeper for this wealthy family, this is just, he's a small minor character, but he's just the sweetest man and the sweetest character. I love Mr. Carto. And Rita, what I like about the presentation of Rita is, again, this movie is 1980. I feel like if this film had been made in the US in 1980, they really would have written Rita as sort of like this brainless slut who acts out too much, because that's kind of what we got like in the Friday the 13th movies, any of the slasher films of the early 80s. You kind of have these, sort of one-dimensional dumb sluts and one-dimensional dumb chads that you knew were all going to get, killed. Rita has a head on her shoulders. She really just wants to be a young woman. She wants to go and dance with her friends. She wants to, date boys. She's not a slut. She's not a whore. But, she does like a cigarette every now and then. And she is a little bit of angry. She is a bit angry about the loss of her mom. And, what does she do now? And in her family, father is, this workaholic. She doesn't necessarily have a female to confide in within the family. And, that she does get close to, this whole weird supernatural phenomenon really does bring her closer to her brother, Tommy. And in so many ways, it brings out sort of a leadership, kind of a sense of bravery and courage in this character of Rita. Again, this is a horror film from a quasi-Islamic country, and I think the Western audiences would maybe have a particular assumption of how this young woman character would be written and characterized. And I don't feel like we fall into any tropes or traps. Again, she's not some dumb slut. She's not a hussy. She does like to dance, but, she's just a human being. And I dig her a lot. Tommy is also, I like Tommy because he is sort of like that every kid, in that he's obviously missing his mother. He's trying to figure stuff out. At the same time, he is sort of like a, burgeoning adolescent. So he's dealing with a lot of stuff. Also, it's just sort of a gritty 1980 horror film from, another country. The house is beautiful. I wonder if this house exists. I would love to go and find this house and film at this house. But it's because it is Indonesian, because the sort of the moral philosophy behind it isn't Christianity or Buddhism, it's Islam. It has a different flavor to it as well. The ending is really kind of cool. It doesn't follow, in some ways it does follow the narrative structure that you would expect from a horror movie of this type. Of a family suffers a loss, weird things start to happen. There's plenty of those in, Western film. But the style in which this is done, the way it's shot, where it's from, the cultural sensibilities, and how that informs the film just really make it a lot of fun to watch and very interesting, a compelling watch. Even though, some of the scenes with, again, like I said, the blood to me isn't that convincing. The characters are all, there's no one-dimensional characters. You love Tommy, you love Rita, you love Mr. Carto. Maybe the most one-dimensional character is the dad, Munarto, who is the workaholic. But even he comes around at some point. This is another sort of, this might be a good pairing with, any sort of late 70s, early 80s horror films. It is currently, I was shocked when I heard about this movie. I'm like, oh, I'll bet I won't be able to find this. And I believe I ended up finding this on, was it Tubi? Hang on. It was either Tubi or YouTube streaming. Hang on a sec, guys. I'm sorry to be doing this to you. I know this does not make for great viewing. Now it's giving me 2017. I didn't type in 1980. 1980. Yep, it is on Tubi. I believe I pulled up first on YouTube and I didn't like the subtitles. And then I found it on Tubi and the subtitles were fine. So depending on the style of subtitles you guys like, you can find it on Tubi. Again, it's Satan's Slave, 1980, or you can find it on, or at the time, it was on YouTube. A lot of stuff goes up and comes right down from YouTube because obviously somebody owns it. But Satan's Slave is just, it's a fun, interesting horror movie that that doesn't, you expect it to be a certain thing and it's not. It really avoids a lot of traps. It's a lot of fun. So if you like Asian horror, again, it's not of the same production value of a lot of these classic, Ringu, Ju-on, The Grudge, and a lot of the Korean stuff that's come out in recent years. But it's still fun. It's still worth your time if you like genre, if you like early 80s, if you like foreign films. And it's I think it's fun to just sort of change it up because we are in such a dearth of great horror cinema right now that this is something I think you could slide in there as maybe a fun change of pace. But yeah, Satan's Slave, 1980 on Tubi or YouTube. Worth a watch. And if you like it, as soon as I finished this one, I went to Shudder and I watched Joko Anwar's 2017 remake, which is Satan's Slaves with an S, so it's plural. And that was really good too. That really had the production values. Whoa. It had a bit of a, it ties itself into Indonesian history and some political intrigue that I really didn't expect. It has a very, very spooky, creepy vibe to it. Some great scares, some great choices, plays against some expectations that I didn't expect. And then boom, I was so impressed by that, I went into the sequel, Satan's Slaves Communion, which I believe came out in 21, also streaming on Shudder. And again, if you're like me and you want something different, you're tired of seeing kind of the same people, the same type of movies, cranked out year after year, this is really worth your time. There's also, and I'm just tacking this on here, there's two movies, Korean films, sci-fi horror, The Witch Part 1 and The Witch Part 2. I believe Witch Part 3 might be dropping or may have already dropped in Korea. I'll do a whole separate review for these two witch movies. So fun. Really, really well done. It's almost kind of like X-Men meets horror meets a little bit of John Wick. It's kind of bloody, but it's super smart. A lot of intrigue in those films, just like the Satan's Slave films. So check them out. You won't be disappointed if you like those types of films. If there's anything in the vein of the Joko Anwar movies, if there's other Indonesian horror, other Asian horror that you think we should check out, again, we love that stuff on this channel. Please comment below. Let us know. And if you hung with us this far, please subscribe, like, comment, and yeah, check this stuff out. It's just fun. It's not heavy narrative stuff. It's just good, stylish, compelling, aesthetic genre filmmaking. And yeah, movies should be fun. So go watch these, have fun, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.